Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a sledgehammer to a massively popular and honestly completely toxic myth in the personal development world. You know the one, that idea that you have to be emotionally ready or in the mood before you can actually start getting things done. We're going to dive straight into the hard science today to show you exactly why discipline is always, and I mean absolutely always, stronger than emotion. So if you've ever found yourself sitting around just waiting for motivation to magically strike before you do your work, well, you're going to want to stick around. This is exactly what you need to hear. So let's kick things off with a pretty shocking truth. You've probably asked yourself why, even when you have these massive, life-changing goals, you sometimes literally just run out of energy and can't even get yourself out of your chair, right? You might sit there thinking, man, something is deeply wrong with me. But here's the reality check. You aren't broken at all. You're actually just battling millions of years of human evolution. Those heavy emotions, that intense feeling of boredom or pure exhaustion right before you start a hard task, they're often just biological noise. Seriously, these feelings were never designed to make you successful. They are literally just designed to conserve your physical energy. Okay, let's dive into this. The modern self-help industry has spent years, decades really, selling us this very comfortable and highly profitable lie. They love to tell us that success is just a matter of inner alignment, that your goals are just waiting for this mystical spark called motivation. We've been sold this idea that if we just think positive thoughts and vibe high enough, the universe will just hand us what we want. But when we actually look at neuroscience and cognitive psychology, oh boy, the science completely tears this sweet little illusion to shreds. We're out here endlessly waiting for a spark from the outside that is simply never going to come. And that, my friends, brings us to the big lie of motivation. We've got to face the harsh biological reality of how our brains actually work. Motivation is not some permanent, stable state of being that you can just lock into. Actually, it's a fleeting, totally unreliable neurochemical illusion. And its main driving engine? Dopamine. For years, we've completely misunderstood the role of dopamine when it comes to productivity, and it's this exact misunderstanding that traps us in that endless, frustrating cycle of waiting for motivation to finally arrive. Let's look at what dopamine actually is, because it's fascinating. Dopamine is not the molecule of permanent happiness or pleasure, like a lot of people think. It's actually the molecule of anticipation and pursuit. This chemical completely floods your brain when you're chasing something new, like say when you're mindlessly scrolling through your social feeds getting that instant gratification, or when you're just daydreaming about how awesome your future is going to be. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The second you face a genuinely difficult task, something that requires real, deep cognitive friction, your dopamine levels completely crash, like rock bottom. And this contrast is just wild. Honestly, it's kind of funny when you think about it. Our brains are literally hardwired for the Stone Age. We're walking around with a brain that constantly seeks comfort, wants to conserve energy at all costs, and runs screaming from any kind of pain. Now fast forward to the digital age, and we're asking this caveman brain to voluntarily choose friction, sustained focus, and deep cognitive effort? Well, of course your brain is going to throw a tantrum. Every single time you sit around waiting to feel like working, you're basically handing the steering wheel over to a primitive survival mechanism that will never, ever choose hard work on its own. And this is exactly where that frustrating, vicious cycle kicks in. You know this cycle all too well, don't you? Step 1, you wait for the mood to strike. Step 2, spoiler alert, the mood never comes. Step 3, you harshly judge yourself, calling yourself lazy, weak, or telling yourself you just have no willpower. But listen to me, you're not lazy. You've just been operating on bad intel. You're sitting there waiting for a chemical miracle and a biological system that is literally designed to keep you on the couch. The hard truth we all need to accept is that discipline really doesn't care about your feelings. So, let's break out of this biological cage. It's time to pick up the pace and look at what actually happens inside your brain when you force yourself to put in the work. We're moving past the abstract psychology now and getting to the tangible, physical truth of the matter. Discipline is not just some wishy-washy mental concept. It's not a personality trait that you're either lucky enough to be born with or not. Discipline acts exactly like a physical muscle. And the best part? You have the absolute ability to build it. The entire foundation of this transformation is based on one of the coolest, most powerful discoveries in modern science. It's called neuroplasticity. See, your brain isn't just a rigid, pre-programmed machine. It's this highly malleable, adaptable organ that is continuously restructuring its own physical pathways. But here's the absolutely crucial key to all of this. The brain restructures these pathways based on the actions you actually take, not the things you just sit around wishing for. When you act against your emotional impulses, you are creating extraordinary, literal, physical changes right inside your skull. And this brilliantly illustrates what goes on the moment you have to make a choice. A literal battle is raging in your head. When you're completely exhausted but you force yourself to execute a task anyway, you're actively bypassing the amygdala. That's your brain's panic center, the source of those knee-jerk animalistic reactions. Instead, you're firing up the prefrontal cortex. That part of your brain is the evolutionary crown jewel. It handles human executive function, long-term planning, impulse control, the whole shebang. With every single effort, you're actively stopping yourself from reacting like a purely emotional animal. Let's break down the actual neuroscience of what's happening here. Every single time you override an emotional impulse, like, say, choosing to continue your hard work instead of picking up your phone to scroll, you activate a process involving synaptic pruning and myelination. You are literally wrapping your neural pathways in a layer of fat called myelin. Think of it like putting thick insulation around a copper wire. It allows your brain's signals to travel much faster and way more efficiently. This means you are physically developing your frustration tolerance. By enduring discomfort, you're literally upgrading your brain's hardware. How cool is that? So I want you to always keep this metaphor tucked away in your mind. Discipline is a physical muscle, and cognitive friction is the weight. Just like when you hit the gym and lift heavy iron, your muscle fibers tear and then rebuild themselves to be stronger than before, right? Well, it's the exact same thing here. Every single time you expose your mind to cognitive friction and force it to do difficult tasks, your brain's neural architecture physically rebuilds itself to be tougher, faster, and more resilient. Doing the hard stuff quite literally reconstructs your physical hardware. All right, now that we've got a handle on the mechanics, we've reached the real climax of our explainer today. We absolutely have to confront the single greatest cognitive distortion floating around modern society right now. It's this toxic belief that you have to be in the right headspace before you can start working. Phrases like, "I just need to feel it first," or "I'll write when I'm inspired." Those are the biggest traps destroying your progress. The absolute unvarnished truth is that action must happen before emotion, period. In the world of clinical psychology, this principle is formally known as behavioral activation. And I'm telling you, functional MRI studies have come in and completely shattered the old way of thinking. They prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that it is the action itself that creates the emotional state, not the other way around. When you're lacking motivation, waiting for your mood to magically lift is a documented clinical trap. Why? Because the emotional centers of your brain will always argue to conserve energy. We usually get stuck in this really comforting illusion, right? We look at what we think we need: motivation, perfect emotional alignment, feeling 100% ready to get things done. But in reality, masters of execution, the highly successful people out there, they know the real formula. They understand that what actually works is accepting that cognitive friction and just initiating motion, even when they don't feel like it at all. Literally zero desire. They never wait to feel ready because they grasp one fundamental axiom of human behavior. And that fundamental axiom is this: motion creates emotion. Honestly, if you take nothing else away from this explainer, let it be this. When you take that very first step, even when your hands are shaking, even when your mind is totally foggy and you feel this intense internal resistance screaming at you to stop, you are actively altering your internal neurochemistry. The simple act of just doing the task triggers a delayed release of dopamine and literally changes the physical landscape of your brain. So ultimately, it all boils down to one absolutely fundamental question. Will you remain a slave to your biology, or will you become the architect of your own mind? Every single time you have to choose between running away from a difficult task or staying the course and pushing through, you are answering this exact question. You can wait for motivation and stay chained to your primitive caveman biology, or you can embrace the friction, take that first step regardless of how you feel, and truly become the architect of your mind. The choice is entirely yours. It is time to stop waiting and start building that muscle of discipline today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.